So for any of you guys that actually watched the podcast that happened, I think it was about 6 weeks ago, I have Jacob Kirkbride with me, if I've got your name correctly. He was the guy who had the pleasure of, who had the misfortune of asking me to come in, but no, he was not. Oh, thanks, man. How you doing?
Top man. Could be better, especially after Saturday.
Yeah.
So.
I thought you meant because of the cold you told me that off air that you had when I was actually meeting you.
I mean, that just pretty much summed up the weekend as a whole, to be honest.
Oh, it did. I mean, did you watch the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it looked. I mean, I know some people that went. Honestly, watching it on the telly, it looked even worse.
I mean, I watched it on TV. It looked pretty horrendous. I mean,
yeah.
I'm kind of not surprised we got beat though, because Southend, that was literally a win or die game for them. They had to win to give themselves any realistic chance of staying up, because I think a draw wouldn't have been enough, would it? Because I think Plymouth won, so
yeah,
I'm not surprised we lost, but it doesn't excuse the performance. It was,
it doesn't,
it was really. I mean, the last two. I mean, you had the misfortune of being at Fleetwood, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, how was that?
I was still fuming that they put on the Captain Pugwash theme as their goal song, but
yeah.
let's try and move on from those times.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on Fleetwood, it just sounds like such a carnival music, and that sums it up really. No, I mean, Fleetwood, from the sound of it, did deserve the win, and Southend definitely did, but we knew we were going to be in the playoffs, but it's just disappointing to end the season that way, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, the performance on Saturday just basically, it felt like they had the flip-flops out, more or less already, and the playoffs has not even started yet. I mean, I think there's just like a very poor attitude running through the squad at the minute, and hopefully I want Jack Ross to identify some of those players that he thinks will just not be mentally ready for those two games we've got coming up.
Yeah, well, they're two big games, aren't they?
Yeah, against
because Portsmouth aren't exactly going to be any mugs, but I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, actually, I'll ask you, what do you make of the fact we've now got Pompey? Because I thought we were going to get Charlton.
To be honest, I'd like. As weird as this sounds, like going into the playoffs, I don't really care who you get, if I'm honest, because like playoffs is just a completely different game altogether. Form goes out the window. Watching playoff games over the years, like a lot of teams play with like a lot of nerves. Like the football's not great, but it's just a case of
get the job done,
exactly. More or less. Yeah.
You know, I mean, if we want to get promoted, you've got to face one of these teams eventually, haven't we? Even if we were to have Donny in the, that's one thing I was fuming about on Saturday at the weekend. Actually, that if we'd won that, we could have finished third potentially, and then would have probably been playing Donny. And although granted, Doncaster aren't a bad side; they're sixth in the league, but I would have preferred to have played them as opposed to Portsmouth or Charlton. I think I would have picked Portsmouth over Charlton, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the only, coming back to the point I made, like going into the playoff games, form does go out the window.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
So, yeah.
You know, I mean, what would your thoughts be on Jack Ross at the minute? Because I've seen a lot of polarising opinions on whether people are in or out. I mean, I'm personally in, because I still think people need to remember that, although yes, the season has been disappointing, I'm not going to excuse it, I'm not going to take anything away from that. He had 11 players at the start of the season, 10 of which apparently wanted to go. I know that Macam FC, who you've talked to earlier, I think he's a very big Ross out advocate, which is fair enough, it's opinions, but I just think the context needs to be remembered, that you've got that, get players together, throw them together, hope they gel. Very rarely does that actually happen in any context of a football team. And you look at Luton and Barnsley, they had the benefit of knowing each other for so long. Not saying it's an excuse for why we've been in the top, not been in the top two, but I think people do need to remember it. But what would your thoughts on it be?
Well, when he was appointed, I always knew it was going to be a long-term sort of project that he has to rebuild something from scratch, considering just the really bad mismanagement that we've had over the last 2 or 3 years. And obviously, you have to take into the fact that he brought in a lot of players last summer and he had to make them gel very quickly. And I thought, basically, the form we are having now, I thought would be the form we would be having at the start of the season, but we all of a sudden just like gelled those players in really quickly and went on a good winning streak, didn't we? So fair play to him for that, but you have to take into account, being in League One, that teams can work you out tactically as the season goes on, and then all of a sudden you find yourself maybe slipping up in games, and then we went on this really frustrating.
That run of like 20 draws in a row or something, didn't we?
It's 19 in total we've had this season now. So.
You know, it says a lot, doesn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong, I think that the areas I would criticise Ross, I think his substitutions, I think, have been quite poor second half of the season. I mean, I know obviously at the start of the season he was bringing, I mean, look at Charlton at home in the first, I mean, it was the first game, granted, but he changed the system at half-time, changed the personnel, and that ended up working because we turned a 1-0 deficit into a 2-1 win. But I just look at later on. I think he's a bit too reluctant to bring change. I've said it constantly. People must be sick of me saying it. He's waited too long to bring players on, too long to change games, and sometimes I don't know if he sticks with favourites, quote unquote. I don't know I don't know what it is, but so I don't think he's blameless. Don't get me wrong. I mean, say the worst case scenario happened and we didn't go up. How long would you give Ross, if any time at all?
Like I think he will know himself which players that he wants to show the door to, and I think I would like judge him properly after another summer transfer window, because that will give us more of an idea of what sort of squad he wants to build for the future. Whether I mean, all managers have to take gambles these days. Whether it's going to be a squad that, on a results basis, we see can potentially take us to that next level, which, like I said on Nathan Cowan's last vlog, is the Championship at this moment in time. We don't want to think too far ahead of ourselves, despite we have seen teams in the past who have been in League One have double promotions, like was it Norwich and Wolves?
I think the last know what you mean. Southampton did it, didn't they?
Yeah, if it was Norwich under Lambert and then Southampton did it. I can't remember who their manager was.
Nigel Adkins, I think, was the manager at the time.
But that's just.
We've just got to get into the Championship first, haven't we?
Our fan base at this moment in time, like, we just shouldn't think too far ahead of ourselves. I think we need to assess the situation properly by the end of the season. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. If that's the case, then I'll quite move on to the playoffs. How are you feeling ahead of the playoffs? I mean, I know obviously it kind of is a lottery forms out the window because it's any team that wants it most in the games themselves.
That's it. I mean,
do you think the fact we haven't beaten Portsmouth this season so far is a factor? I don't think it is personally, but do you think it is?
I honestly think it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter going into the playoffs. But I don't know what you think. Would you prefer to potentially been away from home first?
I would have preferred it, but at the same time, you have to. If you look at it both ways, you could say that if we were to win on Saturday, which obviously I hope we do, because I think if we're going to get through, we have to win the home game for me, realistically. But if we were to win on Saturday and then you go to Fratton Park, pressure's all on Portsmouth.
Yeah, I mean,
although you can say it's ours to lose, they need to come out and.
The last few home games I've watched Pompey, they've played decent stuff, but they have looked very nervy at home. So that's what. Hopefully we can use as their weakness going into that away leg. But I think it's Jack Ross will be looking at that game. He'll hope that we can more or less get, I think, 70% of the tie done on Saturday with just a brilliant performance.
You'd hope so. I mean, I'm nervous for this. I think especially I know that you haven't got your tickets sorted out, but are you going on Saturday?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Good on you, man. I think I will appeal this to any fans watching. Like I've probably said this 50 times this season. Get yourself there on Saturday if you can, because it's a massive game. It's the biggest home game of the season without question. I think we need to get that stadium rocking, and
especially the Roker end.
Exactly. And I think one thing, I know fans are going to be frustrated when the team loses the ball, but I don't want to hear them like drop their voices or go berserk like it's the end of the world if we lose possessions. Like, fine, happened, stick with them, let them get it back. Like, I want that place to really be intimidating for Portsmouth. We need to have fans on the side, and equally we need the team to perform as well. It's not just a one-way thing, is it? We need to,
I mean, when Portsmouth came to us in the league game, I mean, they did play some good stuff at times. So I think, especially in the second half,
their keeper got them a point.
I mean, their keeper was an absolute force field on the day, but they looked very nervy when they were trying to move forward with the ball. But I think that was because they were playing basically in front of their biggest away crowd in the league.
Exactly.
They had this
we were pinning them back as well, I think.
So. And we just need to do exactly the same.
If we go and get at them at the weekend, then
I think it's a case of the performance levels need to be like they were in the league game, but just up the tempo and score more than one.
Well, it brings on to that.
Yeah.
How do you? I won't ask for score predictions specifically if you don't want to, but how do you think we're going to do? Who do you think is going to win the playoffs? It's a dreaded question. The dreaded question. My heart says we will, but my head's thinking Charlton or Portsmouth.
I mean, I think Charlton are the most informed team going into it.
I'd be amazed if they didn't make the final.
Yeah,
I would be astonished if Charlton. I want Doncaster. If we go through, I want Doncaster to go through.
I mean, that was it Lyle Taylor they've got. I think he's a very, very good player. I mean, we were linked to him last summer, weren't we? So, yeah, I mean, they'll struggle to hold on to him in the summer. On to our game itself on Saturday. I'm going to say a draw but I'm not sure what the score will be.
Fair enough. Oh, you mean down Fratton Park?
I think a draw at our place.
Oh, okay,
We'll
fair
take
enough.
down to Fratton.
Oh yeah, then yeah. I think I'd go with either a narrow. I think it's gonna be a narrow game either way. I think I'd probably go 1-1 or 2-1 to us. But I think it's gonna be. I'd be amazed if the tie's done after Saturday.
I mean, someone told me, you probably have to give me clarification. Was it away goals don't count?
Yeah, away goals apparently don't count in this. No, so well, let's see. Fingers crossed. So does that mean so? If you had to put your hat on a team to win the playoffs now, who would it be? To sort of end the video.
Based on form charting, but I think history proves that normally teams who are out of form and normally that finish 5th or 6th normally tend to get promoted in the playoffs, don't they? We've seen that over the years, so
That's all I'll say to that.
fingers crossed.
Well, thanks Jake again. Appreciate you coming on. We'll do another pod again soon. It was great.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thank you. And thanks, guys, for watching. Come on, let's be up for Saturday.